go on. So he says on page number tzaddik, he says Nimsa Kihem Atman Alavushim Ben Shalachasada Ben Shalagaburos, whatever one we're talking about. Hey, Mizbardadim, they go through a bira process. Batzmusin, that's the light that's within them, are we're talking about the Chasadim and the Gavuros, who Kedusha. So in other words, their essence is Kedusha. We're talking about this Revuah which surrounds them. But then there's a certain amount that is possible, considered to be not worthy to form the Vlad. As to the bira, they're divided into two. Because the basulas of the parts that are the chasadim, Dahm Toher, din kasha v'kadosh. So this is the content. Let's read again, which is the aspect of a din, a hard din. Because why? Because it's a revuah. He says a kasha v'kadosh, but nonetheless it's kadosh. L'pamim na'asa chalav, as we said before, sometimes it makes itself into milk, which was another Indian. Kaniska v'sulas levusha ha'gavuros, so the leftovers from those levusha the gevulim hem klipos gemuros dam tame. Now he said now he says let's talk about now. The Indian Zera b'Yosef b'Bir, we want to talk about this in greater depth. He says, Noida Shechavavaya Demad Alofim. Let's take that name, which is a gematria of 45. He, Bezer Anpen, always refers to Zer Anpen. Havaya Zucha V'yesh Lo Shalofim. Now, there are 3 olives in that Havaya. So he says, V'kol Echad Mehem Mora Al Shem Ekeh B'Hiyoseh B'Sod Revuah V'Acharayim. So each one of those olives in this name, I'm trying to picture this, what he wants to try to tell me here. He says that each one of them is in the form of a revuah. Now, let's just say, for example, what does a revuah do? So revuah, so we had said before, is really a levush. So he says it's a levush for the chasadim and the gavuros. That's what he said before. So that is, you're taking the name Ma, which has nothing to do by itself with the name, with the concept of a revuah, except that it has 3 olives in it. Each one of them, he says, is in the form of a revuah, which I said before is like the chitzon. Well, he said that it represents an aspect of chitzonius, or the transfer from the upper chitzon to the lower to the lower parts of it. So in any way, it comes to the gematria of Dam Kaniskar, and this whole concept is an aspect of Ima, because the Aleph is going to go along with this Eki. He says the Eki in the Revuah form is still a form of Ima. So he said Toch Zer Anpen, which spreads into Zer Anpen. 1 second. Zer Anpen. V'hi nikras Ekya kinoda. She's also that Nima is called Ekya. V'hiyoski mina dinin mizarim. So since we understand that from her side is where is manifest dinim. V'chein ki na'asas b'bechinas dam kaniser. Therefore she turns in to a dam. Let me just read this part again. V'hi nikras Ekya kinoda. V'hiyoski mina dinim mizarim, because from her dinim come. So therefore, he nases bebechinas the dam kaniska. She becomes this concept called dam, which once again is a revuah form. He said that they are hard dinim. He said that previously, but they're tahor, or they're kadosh. Say that his pashtus his chalkus shem havaya dema. So now let's just talk about what happens with the havaya dema. He says they'll love him. Zer anpin. So here they come into zer anpin. Ki os yud. Now this is maybe something not in evidence that I have. Let me see. Os yud he rosha de zer anpin. It is the rosh of zer anpin. The hey rishona begaron. The hey rishona, he says, is in the garon of zer anpin. Now I know that it's in the garon of Eric anpin, but he's telling me that it's in the garon of, and I'm not sure what to do with it anyway. Let me read it over. Zeh Seder his pashtus ischalkus l'shem Revuah Dama. This is how the name of Revuah spreads. So he said Bezer Anpin and Zer Anpin Os Yud, because now we're talking about the Os Yud, and in this form, Yud Vav Daled, he Barosha the Zer Anpin is in the head of Zer Anpin. Then you come to this concept. The Hey Rishona is in the Garon. Like I say, that I didn't know that in Zer Anpin, that the Hey Rishona, that Bina would be in the throat of Zer Anpin, the Zer Anpin. Asher Sham Mislavish Yesod the Ima, which is the place that the Yesod of Ima is located, the Shabbasochim Muachadas, which inside of the Yesod of Ima is the Muachadas HaKolo B'chamish Chesed V'chamish Gevuros. I just have to look back at this one more time. He says the Yos Yud is in one place, it's in the head, and he says, and then the Osh Hey is going to be in the Goron, the Zer Anpin. So he says in this Goron, Asher Sham Mislavish Yesod the Ima, because the Yesod of Ima is down the middle line, which is through this neck. A Yesod the Ima Asher Besocho Mochadas, it has the Gadas HaKolo B'chamish Chesed V'chamish Gevuros. The Bechinas Yesod is there. So if we talk about the Yesod the Ima, Asher Begaron the Zer Anpin, which is in the throat of Zer Anpin. Now we have what this Yesod of Ima in the Garon, which has this letter Hey associated with it. Hu bechinas Aleph shel milui Hey Rishona. So once again, the Yesod is this difficult concept. The bechinas Yesod hazeh the Ima. So this Yesod of Ima, which has come into the Zer Anpin, Asher begaron the Zer Anpin, and it's found in the Garon of Zer Anpin. Hu bechinas Aleph. What is it? This Yesod? It's the second letter of the letter Hey in a milui form. Hey Aleph Rishona. He Hey Atzma he begaron, because he said this. He said it again. He says Ki Hey Atzma he begaron. The Aleph shebemilui, for the milui part of it, Hu Yesod the Ima shebesocha Garon. That's the Yesod of Ima that is depositing into the Garon. Now we know that the Das, the upper Das, is located in the Garon. So, but he said, I'm confused about it, but go on. That he says that Bina, the first Hey, is there. Which part of the first Hey represents there? He says in that place the Aleph represents, what does he rent? Ki Hey Rishona, he says, V'hu bechinas Aleph shel milui Hey, that's the Yesod of Ima. Ki Hey Atzma he begoren. Now it has, though, that's the Hey itself, but it has a letter attached to it in milui, which is an Aleph. The Aleph shebemilui hu Yesod the Ima shebesocha Goram. But the Chem Zuha Aleph, so therefore he says that this Aleph he Shem Akir Revuah Oladam. So he says once again, this Aleph though is an Aleph in the form of a Revuah, Oladam. Now this, to me, the whole sequence here is a little bit mystical, and in other words, beyond, I'm not sure exactly its deepest understanding, that's for sure. Dahm Chayos, it has a name, this Dahm, which is represented by the Aleph that's in the Hey. He said, Hey Aleph is actually the Yesod of Ima, which contains the Chesadim and the Gevuros. And here they are in the throat of Zer Anpin. He said, V'zechad nikra Dahm Chayos. Now, that's interesting that they don't say Chius, which I thought you have a little difference in the way the pronunciation by Yishtabak at the end. You have a difference between the Sfardim and the Ashkenaz about how they pronounce that word. So here he has Dahm Chayos, the Dam of the of the life force, Hamachaya as Zer Anpin, which brings life into Zer Anpin. So the Das because there's a Das inside of him, in his neck, in that place. He says Asher Bo Kasiv over Das Hadarim Yamalo. So when the Das will be filled up the spaces. No, the Dam Shabagorim. Let's go back and let's see with the Dam that's in this Gorim, we said, which is Nikra Dahm Chayos. So this is the Dam that it comes from the Aleph, that is, I mean, he's really dissecting these letters. that the Aleph, which is contained one of the three Alephs, is in the name Ma. So he says, Yechadam shebegorman nikbach adam chayos v'zecha v'pashut. So he says, and that's simple. It doesn't say any more about that. V'oz vav kulamata. Now the oz vav, that's down below. It also has an Aleph inside of it. Kasher mispasha the das v'yored the matach b'shlish elyon v'teferes. That's what he's going to say. I'm guessing that's what he's going to say. Let me turn the page. Elyon v'teferes the zer anpin. So there is an extension. There's the Ataras Yisod of Ima that Ima was actually Ava and Ima, but it spreads down into the chest of zer anpin. Zer anpin ad makom b'chaza until it reaches the chaza zer anpin v'oz mizgala chadas b'his pashtus chamish chasadim v'chamesh gavoros, and it breaks through and we're talking here about what's inside the yesod of Ima, and it breaks out, and everything comes out, the five chasadim v'gavoros at the chest level of zer anpin. So os aleph shebebilui os vav alavav. Let's look at that aleph, because it said there's three of them. And the sunda bebecha b'shnecha bevavim, which is you find it fixed in between the two vavs. Hu shem ekya also gam came berevuah ola gam came dan. This is another blood. So these are so you can talk about three bloods. So this is the concept. Once again, we said, what is this Dahm? The Dahm is a levush for the chasadim and also for the veguros amispashtim sham, which are spread there. So you see these revuos are now in the goof of the zer anpin. Aleph zu hi begematria Dahm. Okay, that we know because it's a revuah, that's what it is. Being taser os Aleph zu mechavaya dama. So if you remove it from the Demaya, the Ma, just look at it by itself. So let's just count this up again, because I looked at this like 12 times. I was really couldn't get anything out of my review yesterday. He says V'im taser os Aleph zul mechavaya dama. The Vaya dama has this. Okay, this Aleph, take an Aleph away. I'm not sure the actual implications of this, but it's one of these things. SHAAR Havaya b'cheshbon Dahm gam came. We could see the Havaya actually comes to the concept of Dahm also. So this is a way that we could see that internally that Ma is only one letter away, which is these Alephim, from actually also being Dahm. Is that how I would explain it? I'm not sure. V'nimsiki kol haravaya rezulus ha'alav zusa, all the Havaya, if you except for this one Aleph, which we said before is an Aleph in a Revuah, it's an Aleph that covers over the chasadim. He begematria Dahm is in the gematria of Dahm. The Aleph of Aleph zu harumezes the shem ekya berevuah, which represents the ekya revuah. Gam hu gematria Dahm, so it's also Dahm. So if Im came, hu Dahm b'soch Dahm. If that's the case, then you have a Dahm within the Dahm, because the 45 is a Dahm. You could have a Dahm by taking this Aleph. Then you have the Aleph itself, also represents the Revuah of Ekya. There's another Dahm. So if you take the join together the Dahm of the Ekya, which is a Revuah, I guess, and you bring it back into all the rest of the letters of the Chavaya of Alephim, which are now 44, Ma Kaminyan Adam, then everything go back to be Ma again. So basically the word Dahm, I think he wants to say the word Dahm and the word name Ma go very closely related. And it has to do with the revelation of the Chasadim and the Gavoros below the Chos of the Zer Anpin in some way. That's of that pasuk. That is all talked about in SHAAR mitzvahs. It's going on. So now let's see, keep going on, plowing into this. So now they're out in the open, in the place which is Lamata Minachaz of Zer Anpin. So then the problem is in that area there is a certain amount of achiza v'chitzonia behem. So we have that in this area is where we've seen this in other places in the Eitz Chaim, I guess, where it talks about the area of the Chaz of the Mata is the place of the Das Tov V'Roah. Bezecha v'sod pasav v'Yosef das Yosef Makov. What does that mean? So the more you know, the more it hurts. Because of this fact. I don't understand this. The fact that the das is hidden, tocha yisod the ima, it's inside of the yisod of ima, that is the moch of das is in there. Shuhu the chaza, which extends all the way down to the chaza. Az eina klipas ne'achazim bo. So that from that place up until that point, the klipas have no hold on it at all. Over his galas lamata min the but once it comes out from below the chazan, it's into the goof, which is a shecha ba'oz vaday ha'rason the tosefes. Now you see there's a tremendous, it's not hidden anymore. It's out, and there's a tremendous amount of light coming from it. Sham b'chiyos b'gilu, od yosem makov. What happens is that the pain, or this, what I'll call it just pain, as Yosef Makov, or Yosef, it adds on to the pain, Shehema Klipos and Echazim Sham, which are in that location. So we see that up above in the area of Das itself, it's not really attacked. But once it reveals itself, what's inside of the Das, then that draws, like, I guess, mosquitoes to the people. So if you want to talk about pain, there's nothing more painful than being involved in falseness. So there they are. They get divided now into two different groups. They're out there. This pool of light is now in the body of Zer Anpen. Chamisha Dahm Tocher, there's 5 Dahm Chotame, and there's 5 Dahm Tocher. Because Zera B'Hiyosa Sham B'Soch Zer Anpen, this is all talking about while they're inside of Zer Anpen. So he goes on and he says, then after that, Kasher Elach HaChasada V'Chavor Nitanem Al Rachel Nukva Zer Anpen. So ultimately, all of these Chasadim and Gavurs are different routes to bring this in, but ultimately she has Yichud with Zer Anpen, and she receives the Chasadim as well. Hanikras He Achrona. Let's go back again, because he's introducing now another letter which has also a Aleph in it. So he says, Zer Anpen is called the He the Rachel, Nukva de Zer Anpen, is the He Achrona Shalavaya de Man the Halofim, Besod Hazivug, and she is now in that secret of the Yichud with Zer Anpen. Vaz Osa Ha'ara. So he says, so let's just think about that for example. It's not for a second. Like in our Sephardic Siddur, where you see the letter Hey, the final letter Hey, but it has the name Adni inside of it. In that particular case, that represents the Yichud between the two. Here he says, Hanikras Hey Achrona Shalavaya Dema, and it's a Vaya Dema Dalafim Besod HaZivug, and they're in a state of Zivug. That is the Aleph and the Hey. Az Osa Ha'ala Shababilui Os Hey Hazos Achrona. He romezes El Shem Akya with a Revuah form, Revuah Ha'ola Dahm. So once again, we have a Dahm here at the end. That's the third Dahm, Hanita Barachel, which is placed inside of Rachel. V'az Na'asim Chamisha Demei Tahor. Then they make from her 5 Demei Tahor v'Chamisha Demei Tuma inside of Rachel. So. Okay, so we went on a little excursion there. So he says, the Inyan Rishon. Let's go back to the first idea. Ki Inyan Galas Mitzrayim. So what does Galas Mitzrayim have to do with the Levushim on the Chasadim and the Gavuros? That's my question. Ki Inyan Galas Mitzrayim Garam She-Yisrael Elyon Shuhu Zer Anpen. It causes this thing, that Yisrael Elyon, who is Zer Anpin. In other words, it's like the Yisrael, if the Jewish people are here on this earth, we're talking about the Zer Anpin of Olam Atzilus. Yachsar lehis'alna beso the Eva toch ima, because of the situation he returns back into an Iver situation inside of Ima, in law, he folds up like that, in a totally defensive position. And in that place where the fold takes place, he says, that's what he said, V'sham heim makom shlitas Mitzrayim Paro. Klipos elyonim shebemetzah elyon. These are klipos in the meitzer, I guess the upper narrow space, which is like the neck. V'aslo choyim me'irim b'das zer anpin. So then, after that, though, they're no longer shining into the das zer anpin. Raka sara levushim shehem sara ekya b'revuah. So let me just try to digest this a little bit more. He said Paro, so he says V'sham heim makom shlitas Mitzrayim. That's where Mitzrayim gets a hold of them. That's when Zer Anpin is folded up. Now the thing is, I'm a little confused about is that in my thinking, Zer Anpin is when he folds, is at the level of the chest of Ima. Right? He's he folds back to an embryonic stage. Over here, he says that it's in the neck. But previously he had said that Ima, the first hay, which I said was true of Eric Anpin, but I didn't know it was true of Zer Anpin, and I don't know that it's true, but he says it's in the neck. And so therefore, Uparo Klipas al Yonish of Meitzer Elyon, who is in the narrow place of the neck, which is where this hay is located, maybe, I don't know. But he said other things about it. The going back, because it goes back, right, it goes back. And where is it located? It's located at that spot. So it's like the bacteria or insects or something trying to get into the place where the honey is located, as a metaphor, which are these chasadim and these gavuros, which are folded up so that they can't be attacked. He says, and they're attacked also in a high place, in the place where they're protected by Ima, which we know before is that Ima Dika level, that level, they can't really get to it, but nonetheless they have a hold on it. So that's my explanation of what we're about to read. So he's a Paro Klipos El Paro. So Klipos El Yonim Shebemeitzer HaElyon, in that neck area, Kenoder Etzleinu. There's nothing shining into the das zer anpin. So that's all that's happening. These ekyas that we talked about, there's 10 of them. There's one for each of the chasadim, each of the gavuros. That's all that's able to shine into zer anpin. So what is it? These ekyas, there's Dahm. There are different kinds of Dahm. There's 10 different kinds of Dahm. That's what is able to get into Zer Anpin during the period of time when Paro, or the falseness of the magic of Paro, is holding on to the neck area where apparently the Chasadim and the Gavuras are located. Shehem Eser Pamim Dam Shehem Gematria, which if you take 10 times Dam, it gets to the Gematria of Radu. Now I know that we can remember this back from other times that they talk about this. We're just reading the same SHAAR HAKAVANOT. So there are 216, and then actually was the time it was a time period. Just 1 second, and let me look at it again. I wanted to see this. So he says, if you take 10 times the Revuah of is that right? 10 times Dahm, is that right? No, you want 16. I got wrong. Which are 10 times the vush of Ekya, which is Rakasarach of the Vushim, Shehem Asara Ekya Berevuah, that's 10 Ekyas in Revuah, which is Shehem Eser Pamem Dahm, Shehem Begematria Comedian. 10 times Dahm is 216. Is that right? Dahm is 44 times 10 would be 440, wouldn't it? Communion Redu. I'm missing this. I don't know how I'm getting this. He says, Haim Hasera Yachad Begemara. So the 10 of them together, what is it? he said, Communion Redu. I'll have to figure it out why I can't understand this. So at any rate, so therefore it was the gematria of the number 216. 210, I'm sorry. So now I got it, now I understand it. So I miscalculated that, so it's 210, and my which is 10 times 21, which is the gematria of Akia. So that's what it is, 10 Akias. But what I got confused on is that each Akia I thought was in the Revuah form. But at any rate, he says he takes the Akias and he makes it into 210 to the Chen Choyim Mispar Shnei Galas Mitzrayim Redoshana. So therefore, it had to go by the count of the Akias. So Redu Shama, that it says to go down there. As we have a drush on that in other places. So he says, so the reason for this is this. When it's in a milui of a milui form, yesh b'kol milui b'chem b'sod milui ha-milui, 27 letters, kenoda. Zak, he calls it Zak letters in the kenoda. So he said, I wonder if that has another meaning why he wrote it like that, but at any rate, so he said, answer Pamim Zach, if you go 10 times 27, in Gematria, air. Okay? Then when we talk about the Netzutzas of Keri, the Adam Rishon, Asauhu, Asaum Ra. Ra is the same Gematria as Keri. Now just try to follow this down again. I'm a little bit lost. He said, "Besod v'yehi air raw." That raw and air go together. So he said, "V'lechein shenos misbar galas mitzrayim heim teluya b'shem Akia." They really depend on the name Akia, not on the 27. Now let me just go back and see. Just give me 1 second, please. Going back to the previous page. Where do we get this 27? He says, Kinei eser shemos Akia b'milui miluyim. He says, if you took the count of the letters of the milui, you get to 27. Now, to be able to understand that really well, I'd have to be able to understand what significance is there of the milui. We see it many times. That's how you get to the number 42. Over here, you get to the number 27. So he says, so if you use the milui, and the milui, to me, seeing another, represents the spread, how it spreads out. So in other words, it's diminished to a certain extent, but in more places, or creating places. Yesh b'kol milui mehem besod milui on milui, so each one of the miluyim, yesh b'kol milui mehem besod, the milui, ozius kenoda. Like I said before, I'm not sure really what the significance is of the count of the letters, except that in the Rapach, I guess the count of the letters is something like the 5th level. I think, I'm happy to be learning about that right now. So something like that. So he said, so you take 27 multiplied by 10, then begin matria air. So this gets you to this concept of 270. Carry the Adar Rishon Asahum Raw. So trying to see how does this work? Not sure. So he said, shall carry, these drops of carry the Adar Rishon, or we learned this earlier, that they're considered to be raw, which is a gematria 270. So vihi air raw. So we have that pasuk in regards to the children, I guess the children of Aaron. Is that right? No, children of Yehuda. Sorry. So vihi air raw. V'lechein shenos misbar galas mitzrayim aim teluyim b'shem ha'akia. It really doesn't go after this raw idea. He said because what the galas mitzrayim doesn't go after that, which would give it 270 years, which would be all raw. Asher b'chasara acharayim shalo heim misbar redu Shana, so he says that if you counted up the letters of the Acharayim, I don't know if that's what it means. So let me go see Amnam. Okay, that's not where we're at. See, let me go back. And I'm having just a little bit of trouble with this. Let's look from page Kuf Ches again. Kuf, is that a Ches? Hey, Kuf Hey again. Let's look at the, we have a couple of minutes. So let's look at the Pirush, the SHAAR HAKAVANOT and Revuah. He said, "V'atam adavish mispar chashanim shal galos mitzrayim heim davka kemispar shemos ekyev hu ki hine asara shemo shal ekyev kashehem b'milui meluyim azay yesh b'kol milui b'chem b'sod milui zak oisis." So if you took the whole thing on the milui, that's its real spread, you will get the 27 levels kenodim. Now, why did we come over, this is my question, and start talking about the 27 letters? What does it have to do with? He said, "V'hina eser pamem zak," so he just says the fact there. Take 10 times 27, which was what? To be able to refer to all of this chasadim and gevuros? Not sure. So he says, "V'hina eser pamem zak osios." Masayim v'shvim are 270. Shebegemache Gishmo shel Bechor Yehuda. Ve'edach hanitzutza shall carry the Adam Rishon, and that's where I need to get it understood, that these nitzutzas are the carry of Aleph and Rishon. When they fell into the hands of the falseness, it takes the 270 letters that we're talking about, Shebegedusha, that's what it takes. So, and he says, this Kedusha, he says, when it falls into the hands of the Kitzanim, and he says that's also, I was going to say redu, but he says it's also goes down, falls into the Klipos. It takes the 200 letters of Kedusha, and it makes them bad. So, bihi air raw. So you can say that air is also the same thing as raw. Kasha nizbar pasuk zeh, the el b'tachid sadrash shachakeri nikra raw, that we saw that, which I think I did remember that. V'chein chamotzil nikra raw kevin shenosin kazeh gedika the klipos, a nikra's raw. So also it feeds the klipos. So v'gam nizbar so where did the strength come from, the power, to be able to indenture the Jewish people and get a hold of it so badly? Who mishum shaklipas mitzrayim yom nekas b'makom adash b'mendachim b'shorish tipo sekeri. Because now, let's try to understand this. I'm not sure I do. He says that this ability that they had to be able to the shtabed the bnei Yisrael who mishum sheklipas mitzrayim, their klipa was able to yonek mimakom madas, to be able to yonek from the place that Das was located, which is in the neck of Zer Anpin, shorish tipo sekeri. And this is part I didn't understand, that this is the place that the root of the Tipus of Keri of Adam Rishon is located in the Das, because he had said that, Das is a lashon of intercourse. Das is a look of cohabitation. So he says, Shorish Tipus of Keri, and this is where it did not take place. They're lost. Shehem and the Shaman Shabbacha Begalas Mitzrayim, and these are the Shamos that bought into the Galas Mitzrayim. Now this is a little bit deep idea here, that deep for me, this idea here. I was going to read it one more time. He said, let's go from where it says, V'gam nizbar sha'akoach shenitun Mitzrayim, v'yishtavet b'nei Yisrael, hu mishum sheklipas Mitzrayim yonekas b'makom adas. What is in the Makom Adas? They're specifically organized to do that. Shebemenu shorish tipo sekeri, because it's from Das. Oh, so they're saying that the other side, the klipos, have an opening here, because Das is where if it's improperly, if it's spilled, it spills seed. It could also spill the seed, as well as bring the seed, to fruition in yichud. So this is also the place that opening was made, because it was spilt. That's my explanation. Shehem and Neshama Shebocha B'Galus Mitzrayim. These are the Neshamas that came in the Galus of Mitzrayim. So he's saying Shenos Misvar. So he says V'chein the years that are counted of Galus Mitzrayim, Heim Teluyim B'Shem Ekia. They all have to do with Ekia, not with that. This takes a little digestion here on my part. Shulchan Levush, the Gadlus Shal Chasadim, that this is the Gavush of the Chasadim and the Gavuros. Asher b'makom b'daser in the makom b'dacha b'shechel zer anpin. Asher asara acharayim shalo, because the 10 acharayim, that's the revuahs of them, which are dams. Mechem yenikosim, that's the place that the yanika, I guess, of the other side could get. Let me just see it. Let's read it out. Mechem yenikosim v'his lavshon b'zer anpen heim na'asim b'shutim. But when they get into zer anpen, they are no longer going to be, I guess, the 27. They're only going to be 22. Not sure that I understood the last part. But I'm running out of steam over here. We have 5 minutes. Is that right? Okay. Amnam. So he says Amnam. Let's go on. Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom b'machas sneh, when he saw the sneh. Shehu be'inyan galus Mitzrayim, which really is regards his question as what does this mean? But he says be'inyan galus Mitzrayim haya choshev. He was thinking ki Keter sheyisrael sheba'oso Adar garmo el hastaklos pastalkos. So he said the Jewish people in that generation, they caused the leaving of the Das Elyon, that the ability to permeate Zer Anpin was nullified completely. It was too dangerous, or we were too weak. Shehem Esach of Avayah Shel Chamisha Chasadim V'Chamesh Gevoros, which are the 5 and the 5. Im came Hemshech Shnei Gelusim Yihya Misbar HaEsach Avayah. So it would be, so the count of the amount of time that the Gala should be, it should be Esach Avayah Seshon Nistalko of Kavonim, that he says that they went up in their sin, Shehem Begematria, wrong. Now I'm a little lost here, so I'm going to have to go, we'll read through it, and then we'll have to go back to that if we have time tomorrow. This is the word SHAAR. So the SHAAR is a gematria of 10 times 260. SHAAR the Ros, he turned aside to see. I would say, translate this, that according to the vision that was portrayed in the mind of Moshe, Hoya Avan Toli Ve'eser Chavayas Shecheshbonim SHAAR. So he's saying that Moshe saw, this is the secret of that, he knew that our avonos, or the avonos of that generation, had caused the histalkos of Zer Anpin into embryonic situation. His reading of the situation was that you had a histalkos of 10 different levels of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which comes to the gematria of SHAAR. So we're going to see this again in depth tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, but let me read it out now. So there should be the amount of time we'd be in Kabbalahs. So therefore this is SHAAR Leros. So he saw the SHAAR, the 260, that's what he saw, and it hasn't been that long. Now this whole idea really could be investigated. He said, it doesn't really depend on the Avaya. It's by the Das, Shinistalko. So all this little levels. Oh, I see what he's saying. He says, what lives actually is 10 Avayas. If the Das is withdrawn, Each one of the das, the Chavachas and Gevuros is 5 and 5. So Ele Ba'acharaim, so he says, Hadas Shenistalkel, Ele Ba'acharaim, the Shem is Akya, Shenishara B'das, the Zer Anpen. What remains in the Zer Das is Zer Anpen. So this is probably an important area right here. Is this, the Das, is this, the Akyas in Revuah? Hashem Behem Yom Kim Chitzonim Begalas said that for this is where the Chitzonim can be yonek, because the actual essence of the Chitzonim Gevuros is gone. But what is there Ekia in Revuah. So according to the count, he says, Makom Yonikasam, Kacha Hemshech Misparim. So also, as we can continue counting on Shnei Mem Shaltan, I'm not sure what this means. Mispar Shnei Mem Shaltam only came out where they were subservient only for Radu Chona Kaniska. This is what the pasuk means. Yomer Ko Omar Ko Tomar the Bnei Yisrael Ekia Shalachani Aleichem. So then, therefore, this Ekia idea, that's what's coming. Ekia in the Revuah form, Ekia in its powerful form, I don't know. Lahodos ki acharayim shal ekiv, to let you know here. Lahoros, to teach us. Ki acharayim shal ekiv hem mizgalim ata. That's what you're going to see now. That's what you see now. And mehem achizas memshalas achitzanim, and that is the place where the other side can get a hold. Shehem redu shana v'im kem kavar ki giyazaman gu'ulasim, which is redu really instead of SHAAR, and we'll investigate this Mitzvah Shem next time. Okay, call 2.